I'm really, really grateful that we got Christmas shutdown now in Formula One, because if it wasn't for shutdown, nobody would have stopped. We all want drivers to be driving to the limit of the grip in qualifying, which wasn't the case before. Now is a completely development race, which is of course a huge challenge for us. But I'm not sitting here complaining, that's who we are, but it's a huge challenge. What you see now, I bet it's going to be very different than what you see in race 20 or race 22. I couldn't even cry. Initially I was on the pit wall. I saw the fire goes up. I didn't know immediately it was Roman. Then I'm sure everything felt like eternity, but I'm sure it was really quick. But then once I realized Roman, that was Roman, like immediately you think he's dead, right? I didn't see him come out.
Hello and welcome to this Essential F1 podcast special. Yes, this is where we talk all things Formula One. Normally, we do race reaction stuff. However, today we are joined in the studio by a Formula One Team Principal. Ain't that right, Ben?
Absolutely. And it's a gentleman that I've known for many, many years. And it's a real privilege to have Team Principal of Haas F1 with us, Ayao Komatsu. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah,
Right.
That's great.
First things first.
Yeah.
Ben said Ayao Komatsu.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Komatsu is right. Komatsu is easy, but Ayao, nobody can say Ayao properly.
Ayao.
Not really.
Say it again.
Well, in Japanese, you just say Ayao.
Ayao.
That's close. Yeah, that's
Yeah?
very close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we were having loads of chats earlier of whether it's Ayo or
No.
Io or...
All of them is fine, because
Okay.
all of them are equally wrong. So it's fine. It doesn't matter.
You've heard it so many times.
Yeah. No, normally my mates just give up by the third time and call me something else. So it's fine.
Yeah, do your friends or your friends at uni just called you John or something because they couldn't pronounce your
because
name?
like a very first time I met him and we introduced each other, he said, "Hi, what's your name?" "Rich." "What's your name?" "Ayao." He just didn't even reply. He just stared at me. I still remember. I said, "From today, you're Johnny 5." That was it. So 8 years at uni, both undergrad and postgrad, everyone knew me as Johnny. That was it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And by the way, congratulations. Good birthday in January you've had this year. So a key one. So well done.
Key one,
Right.
yeah, half a century.
Half a century.
Yeah. I'm trying to catch up Ben.
You don't look it.
Thank you.
Neither do you, Ben.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, good compliments all round. Good, we can move
Thank
on with the
you, thank
interview
you.
now,
Yeah,
can't we?
Move on.
So right now, as we're recording this, you are currently, or Haas is currently 6th in the constructors table.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Well, honestly, we weren't expecting that, because this year is the biggest regulation change I've known, right? So I've been doing F1 for 23 years, and I've never seen such a big change, not just only on the chassis side or engine PU side, it's all together. So it's a huge, huge change, and we are by far the smallest team. And then also last year, it's not like we said, okay, 25, let's not develop the car. We just fully focus on 26. We just could not do that. We had to target certain constructors' position to make this year's essentially finance work. So we had to develop the car throughout 25 season, and the very, very limited resource we had to divert into both 25 and 26. So it was a huge challenge. It still is a huge challenge. So honestly, both myself and for everybody in the team, we prepared ourselves for much, much worse start of the season.
It must be incredible, the work you must have been doing, therefore, to get through last year and then build up for this year. I mean, that period after the season ended at the end of last year and we went through Christmas, New Year, were you just flat out all the time?
Of course, yeah. It's the same as everyone. I don't expect anybody stopped other than the shutdown.
Yeah.
I think I'm really, really grateful that we got Christmas shutdown now in Formula One, because if it wasn't for shutdown, nobody would have stopped.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but then I guess being small means like you got to really think twice or 3 times about what you're about to do, what you're doing. Is this really what we should be right now? Because you got to sacrifice so many things. So knowing that we have limited resources, limited time, which is very, very hard, but at least we all think about what we should be focusing on right now. We are very, very brutal in prioritizing and saying, okay, we know this is important as well, but we cannot deal with it, right? And in a way, then that led us to basically focus on the very, very basics. So,
yeah, but sometimes that would be the most important things.
For
the
sure.
things that genuinely matter, then
yeah,
you know
for
you need
sure.
to put the
For me,
effort
the
in.
basics are the most important thing.
Yeah.
But, I tell everyone all the time, I need to myself, that unless you do basics extremely well, You shouldn't try to do something looks fancy or looks sexy or looks interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most boring thing, the basics, if you don't do that, it's no point doing anything else. But really, I think depending on who you are, what kind of culture you've got, they overlook those basics. But for us, as a smallest team, it's definitely not an option. So, but then we really got to drill that into ourselves. Look at the basics. Look at what's the first step we have to overcome before we look at the step 2, step 3.
It's been very impressive as a team what you're doing. Now they've made just a few little changes to the rules and regulations. Is that working for you or against you at the moment?
I don't think, we've only done Miami after the rule
Yeah.
change, right? Then I don't think that really changed much in terms of competitiveness order.
Okay.
I think it's a small step, but it's good for the sports because, we all want drivers to be driving to the limit of the grip in qualifying, which wasn't the case before. So it's still not totally the case, but at least it's one step closer to that. So I think all those minor adjustments we made as a F1 as a community is definitely right step. I don't think it changed the pecking order. It's more about now is a completely development race, which is of course a huge challenge for us. But I'm not sitting here complaining. That's who we are. But it's a huge challenge.
And you've got Ferrari power unit, the half electric, half power. That does seem to be working pretty well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Look, again, one of the things if we talk about where we are in terms of basics, etc. To start off is you had to hit the ground running. Get the car built to hit the shakedown, to hit the first day of testing, and then we had to run reliably. And the Ferrari power unit has been so reliable.
Good.
So.
Good.
I remember 2015 when we had the first hybrid, we just couldn't run. We had a Renault engine back then. Seriously, when Mercedes was just pounding around, I remember
that going along to the testing actually in Spain, and Mercedes were doing the laps, and all the other teams were
in the garage.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Ferrari PU from day 1 of testing or even day 0 shakedown, it's been very, very reliable. So that we have to really thank Ferrari for providing us with such a reliable PU so that we can just get on with the work of understanding the chassis, understanding how to deploy energy.
Yeah.
If you're not running, you're not going to run anything.
Because does it still feel like, we are only a few races in, does it still feel like we're still in the development stages of the season? For us as viewers, we're watching it and trying to watch it in terms of racing, but still at the same time we're all aware that teams still aren't quite at their best yet. So it does feel like it's still development stages of the season. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, development in many ways. Like I said, in terms of chassis side, aerodynamic side, it's going to be throughout the season.
Yeah.
It's going to be a development championship. Because it's the first year of the regulation. You can see the big lap time delta, right? That means nobody's getting best out of regulation yet aerodynamically, right? So that's going to be a huge landscape change. What you see now, I bet it's going to be very different than what you see in race 20 or race 22, let's say. And then there's always some small details just because of this power unit regulation, that always some details that catches you out. Even though you run the simulator, you do lots of simulations, you look at all the conditions. When you go to the real racing track, this is the limitation we haven't
again.
thought about.
Oh, it doesn't work.
So, it works in a way different from what you expected. So again, to deal with that is you got to work as a team, right? And you got to really support each other and then really work together to find the solution quickly.
Yeah.
So that's a good challenge. Honestly, the challenge has been good. Really test the team.
Yeah, you enjoying it?
Yeah, of course we enjoy it.
Yeah.
Every day is a challenge. Ben knows, but Formula One of the amazing thing is not a single day is the same. Every day is a challenge. And then this year, because regulation so brand new, the things you used to take it for granted, even firing up the car, building the car, right? Again, because engine regulation has been stable for last few years, right? So in terms of engine installation, firing up and reliability of the engine was like a given. But this year, it wasn't. Even just to get the things to work, to fire up the car, to get to the shakedown, that itself was a challenge. And also, last 4 years with stable regulations, on the chassis side, not 100% is brand new. Whereas this year, because regulations so different, there's virtually no carryover. That means everything is brand new.
Yeah.
So literally, just to build a car, have all the components working together, either statically or dynamically, was a challenge. So that's why, again, we are really pushed to the extreme extent to hit the shakedown before Barcelona. So we did it in Fiorano. initially we planned to do shakedown in Barcelona, but with the way build was going, we couldn't hit Barcelona. So I said, okay, we cannot move the date. We got to do a shakedown. If we don't do the shakedown, we cannot run in Barcelona proper shakedown test from day one with reliability, because there's so many things you have to overcome just to send the car, for the electronics on the car to talk to each other, fire up the engine and communication, telemetry, all those things you take it for granted. It was a challenge this year. So again, moving the Barcelona shakedown to Fiorano. Why Fiorano? Because we build a car in Italy. So if you can do the shakedown in Italy, it buys you that much more build time. But even then, I think we managed to get the car to Fiorano like 4 in the morning. Yeah. Then we trying to run. Then we trying to run from 9 a.m. when the circuit opens. But with all these communication issues, ECU to talk to the car, firing up the engine, but couldn't really get to the next day, etc. I think we started running at midday. But that's okay, because it's a filming day, right? Only 200k. Then we managed to do 200k. But imagine we're doing that in Barcelona day one, where it's unlimited running. Everybody should be running. Imagine you spending half day in the garage. It's so costly. That's what I call the basics, right? So you work backwards from everything to say, you got to hit this target. So what do you need to do for this step, this step, this step to hit every milestone, which we did. And as a small team, honestly, like,
incredible.
I'm so proud of everyone in the team.
With your current drivers, I mean, Esteban Ocon's got lots of experience. Ollie Bearman's got lots of talent. How is that working with this completely new F1 car? I mean, are you getting benefits from both?
100%.
Are you?
100%.
Yeah.
So again, when we signed both drivers, the continuity from 25 to 26 was very, very important. Because everything changes for this year 26. So I didn't want to change the driver between 25 and 26 either. And then also, like, last year both of them drove us, means that we both understand, we know how those drivers works, both those drivers know how we work, so we are familiar with each other. Then we set the clear target. Look, this year, because everything is brand new in terms of energy deployment, is the biggest thing. So you got to be in the central of all this development. You got to be integrated even more with engineers. And actually, previous generation PU, they didn't have much interaction because things were refined, it was working. Only when there's a problem, you talk a little bit. But here, everything is brand new. And in terms of, like, even certain things looks optimal in simulation for a driver to actually drive it, get best out of it. It may not be the same solution. So it's really interesting to work with drivers and engineers together. And that was a new dimension.
I've actually been wondering, and obviously we've seen Kimi Antonelli doing a great job. I've been wondering if almost the younger drivers have an advantage because they don't have all the history and knowledge of how it was to drive an F1 car, and they're having to just absorb it and learn it very quickly. Is that helping Ollie Bearman as well too?
I think there's certain level of that. I think certain truth in that. But for instance, one of the very interesting thing Ollie said to me before the season start was like, Ayao, this is like I treat this as a completely different formula this year, but it's not a problem for me because every single year, coming from go-karting to Formula 4 to Formula 3, Formula 2 to F1, almost every year he's been changing a category. So like exactly to your point, 25 he's done F1, let's say version 1, 26 F1 version 2. So, and then also those younger generations, they adapt so quickly. And then, all these switches on the steering wheel, their generation, gaming generation, they sim racing. I think Ollie on the sim racing so much. I think people like Ollie, Gabriel Bortoletto, Max, they're on the sim all the time, right? So these guys are very, very quick to adapt. I mean, that doesn't mean to say Esteban's too slow to adapt. Esteban's, again, with his work ethic and attention to detail, he's really suited for this type of formula and to get best out of it. But in terms of adaptability, these young generations are amazing.
I'd love to know your personal relationship with your drivers. So, like, what's your relationship like with Ollie?
Like as Ben knows, like I used to be a race engineer, and I actually did every single F1 race of Roman Grosjean. I can't remember how many races he did in then, but either as a performance engineer or race engineer or chief race engineer or engineering director, different positions, but I did every single race with him, right? And when I was his race engineer, I was still quite young and I did my best and I loved it. I wouldn't change it for anything, but still you run everything every day, every year, right? So if I had a bit more experience when I was running Roman, I'd have done certain things differently. So I tried to apply that every time.
Yeah.
But then like in 24, when I became team principal, so of course I worked with Nico in 23 as well, but 24 when I became team principal, and I'm sure at the beginning of the year, Nico had huge doubt, in if I can do it or not. But we ended up having an amazing working relationship, both professional, huge respect to each other. We loved working together. And then at the end, for me, that's the benchmark that I set myself. Like, I now got to achieve basically this level of relationship with any of the new drivers I'm going to have. That Nico was, honestly, his work ethic was amazing. His technical feedback was amazing. And also the way he can be the center of the development. I asked him, you got to help us develop the car.
Yeah.
And he was really driving that. He enjoyed it, but it's just the whole relationship was another level.
Does it feel like it's purely professional whenever you speak to Esteban or Ollie? Or do you have like a little WhatsApp group of the three of you and you...
No, we don't have like WhatsApp group. We have individual WhatsApps.
Okay.
But of course, like there's time and places, right? So honestly, Nico, I just call him as a friend for sure. He's much more than just my former driver.
That's nice, yeah.
But when we are working together, that was so good in like a, we can say anything to each other.
Yeah.
We can be completely open. And then we both know that, let's say, he knows that he can show his weakness to me. I can show my weakness to him without worried about him judging me or anything like that. In the sense that if he had bad qualifying, if he got beaten by a teammate, if he hasn't got answer to that, he doesn't have to make excuses to me. He would say like, it's very rare. I mean, he was amazing qualifier. It's very rare, but when it happens, he could say, right, I don't know what's happening here. This is my limit. My lap was good. I carried as much speed as I could, but looking at data, this guy's not feeling that. But, you can have that kind of honest, complete, transparent conversation. That means we don't waste time. Then that doesn't mean that I think less of him at all, right? So then I'll be thinking, right, what is Nico feeling? What is giving him the feeling of this limitation here that the other guy is not feeling? What can we do to the car to improve that? Because we know Nico is an amazing driver, right?
Yeah.
So honestly, that was a really amazing year. And then, with Ollie and Esteban, I really set out to build a similar sort of relationship. And then I think we are doing that again. Like last year, challenging one was like, for instance, Silverstone when they came together. But I believe three of us, we dealt with it very, very well. And then I left it to them in the end. We put straight after the race, we put all of us, our opinions on the table. And I said, look, this is Sunday straight after the race. We don't need to all agree.
Yeah.
But before the next race, we got to agree. And I think it's best you two, both drivers can agree because you are the one driving, right? So you are the one best to understand the situation, make a rule of engagement rather than me who's not driving. And then, but if you can't come to agreement before the next race, I have to make a rule, right?
Yeah.
But I fully expected them to come to agreement, which they did.
Okay.
And then so there's things like that. You got to be transparent. You got to have a trust and respect to have the hard conversation.
I'm not surprised in a way because you came through engineering side, getting into Formula One, and then working personally with drivers as their engineers, and then becoming overall team engineer manager for Haas, and then of course actually taking over from Gunther Steiner as the boss at Haas. Was that because you've come from that engineering side? Did that feel automatic to you, or did it feel a bit strange? Because it is a different world going from the engineering side and working with drivers and everybody else, but then becoming the boss. How did that feel for you?
I think if you say automatic or strange, it's actually neither. So it is a progression.
Yeah.
But for me, like it's all about human beings, right? So you get the best about how do you get best performance out of individuals, group of people, then a team, right? And then to put two competitive cars or to have the best sporting result you can wish for, like everything needs to work from drivers to the car to the operation to everything.
Yes.
So it is about a high performance culture, human performance. So the things I'm using every day, that everything I've been learning over not just my Formula One career, from when I was a kid, everything you learn, you have to put everything into it. So it's definitely not coming as automatic, but it's definitely not strange either. It's a progression, and then you got to use all your, to me, life experience into it. But at the end of the day, it's to get the best performance out of everyone. So it's about human being.
It doesn't surprise me too much, actually. I mean, you worked with Jenson Button in his early years before he was a world champion.
Yeah.
And then he became world champion with Ross Brawn running the team,
Yeah.
who had been an engineer, became a team boss, and Jenson went on to win the championship.
It's
So
a
I can
nice
see
journey.
Yeah, that journey from engineering to becoming team boss, I think it really does work.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, obviously, given all of your experience within Formula One, we have a game that we're calling Getting to Know Ayao.
Okay.
Which I kind of made that work. It's a nice play on words, right?
Okay.
So basically, I want to start back in 2004.
Okay.
So
Yes.
you were a tyre engineer back then. So
Yes.
how long had you been in the UK at that point?
2004, so I'll be 10 years then because I came here in 94 when I was 18.
Okay, so
Straight
how
after
did
high
you
school.
end up at that point? And also, how did you end up a Coventry City fan?
No, because as a kid, I was really much more into history and literature.
Okay.
So I was about storytelling. So it probably ended up like yourself. Honestly, I was really into writing. I loved literature. So I used to write a story and send it to newspaper company for competition. Yeah,
Really?
that was my passion. I loved history. Loved also like untangling certain dimension, create a history and discover certain truths, right? So then at some point, I met my dad's friend who was a newspaper journalist, and he's done one amazing piece in Japanese history, huge political corruption. He uncovered it. Amazing piece of investigative journalism. So I thought this is what I was gonna do. So I was always gonna be on the writing side. But then as a teenage kid, I got into motorbikes. Then back then, like 16 years old, you can get motorbike license. But before that, everybody just loves motorbike. Your target
Yeah.
is on the 16th birthday, you pass the test, you have motorbike ready.
I get it.
So
I totally get it.
So like since the age of like 12, I was into motorbikes.
And
right?
then it was into motor racing. You saw all that.
Yeah, because then
coming
like
at you.
my neighboring guy was Norikabe.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't know he was gonna become MotoGP rider. But then so we are very close, all our community. So motorbike was everywhere. Then I started watching MotoGP, and then I watched Formula One, right, on TV. And then honestly, the things I wanted to do in my life was like I always wanted to do something international. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to meet from different culture, all sorts of places, learning about, discovering new things. And I also wanted to do something that if you're, let's say, good at something, you can show it as a result,
Yeah.
right? So the Formula One is that. And
That's what
also
matters, yeah.
another thing is like the feedback. Back then I think there was 16 or 18 races.
Yes,
So whatever you've
that's
done
right.
is good or bad, you see on the race result, then you got a chance to rectify in the 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that feedback group as well. So everything I was looking for, that competitiveness, feedback group, international traveling, and the experience of culture, working with people from all over the world, and then the fact that if you are good, you can show it. All of that was in Formula One. So at the age of 14, I decided this is what I'm gonna do.
It's amazing you
Okay.
decided that. And then you came and did the university in this country.
Yeah.
And you worked with F1 people to a certain extent with that university course that you were doing, meeting people. And you were writing to Formula One teams all the time, weren't you? Trying to get jobs.
Yeah.
But you did get into jobs pretty much straight away from
No,
there.
but because my dad didn't even have a driving license.
No, I
So
remember.
my family could have been farther away from
That's crazy.
motor racing or cars,
Yeah.
right? Then I remember asking my dad when I was a kid, why don't you take a driving test and have a driving license and have a car like everybody else has? And he's such a focused guy for his job. So he said, no, it's a waste of time. I don't need a car. I live in Tokyo. I walk everywhere. I love mountains. I don't need a car.
Fair enough.
So then but then only thing is when I looked at Formula One, there's so many teams based in UK. So
Yeah.
I thought looks like first step is come to UK. I have to learn English. So came here, did a language course in London, 3 months. Then I knew that what grade I had to get for foundation course. Then I looked for the foundation course. I ended up in Warwick University run foundation course, which was based in Coventry. So that's where I was in Coventry.
I get it.
Aha.
But then like foundation course is all from basically foreigners, and
Yeah.
it's about 8 people.
Okay.
But I think amazing thing about sports is it helps you in your life. It's like But Christmas of that year, I managed to miss my flights to go back home.
Oh.
Right. So yeah. So I had a ticket Aeroflot, by the way, that Russian airline. So
Okay.
that was the cheapest. So there was no question for me. I was going back on that one. But anyway, I managed to miss the flight. So I was so depressed. I took the train back to Coventry, and then back then I was with my female friend sitting in a pub with the suitcase drinking. And then of course Irish people are very friendly, aren't they? So this Irish guy, but anyway, I discovered he loves Asian girls. So he probably thought my friend was like, looking okay. So he wanted to chat her up or something. Anyway, he came to speak to me, and then somehow he got on to talking about rugby. I'm looking for rugby club, and he said, I play for rugby. Why don't you play for the club I play for? So I ended up playing rugby for the club he's playing for, right? So
no
it's a
way.
local rugby club in Coventry. But what was amazing was then I got to know so many local people that seriously helped me integrate into English British society in Coventry. That no way that would have happened if I just stayed in the Coventry Technical College foundation course run by Warwick Uni.
That wouldn't have happened if you caught the flight as well. It's all from
Totally.
missing that flight.
No, seriously.
Once you'd gone through all that and through university and managing to get into Formula One, British American Racing was the team that you first started working with. And actually, I thought it was fun that Takuma Sato, the Japanese racer, he did one race that first year you were there, I think, and certainly was racing the next year, 2004. He was born, 1 year after you, the same date, I think.
Again, that's crazy. I think I'm so lucky to have bumped into people at certain point in my life.
Yeah.
Like this Coventry
Right
story
place,
is one
right
of them.
time.
But again, so one of the key thing was industrial placement year for me in 97 at Lotus Engineering.
Yeah.
Again, I applied for so many companies. All rejection apart from two invited me for interview. One of them was Lotus Engineering, and then they took me on. Then I got on really well with my boss, the guy who interviewed me and took me on.
Good.
And then he was a racer as well. He used to race Formula Ford back in Castle Coon area.
Lovely.
And then by the time
Formula Ford too.
yeah. And
It's
then
all connected.
by the time I met him, so he was a head of control systems at Lotus Engineering, and then he already designed and built his own Formula Ford from scratch. So he's a proper engineer, right? But then him and his mate was running like this amateur Formula 3 car, ARP Formula 3. I don't know if you remember. So this is like buying I can't remember, 5 to 10 years old Formula 3 chassis and then run it in a complete amateur series, right? So it was Steve was my boss. So Steve and his mate called Bob, who was the chief designer at Dynamic Suspension.
Okay.
Then this one guy who worked in the city paid for the drive. Then latest addition was me, right? Completely
an assistant, just
does everything. But I've done everything from just washing the wheels to writing a suspension kinematic software to downloading the data. But that was amazing school because Steve was very, very good overall engineer. He was good vehicle dynamicist. He didn't design, but Bob was designer, and he was, because he used to drive as well, he was very good with driving. So that's where I learned the basics of the, let's say, trackside engineering, race engineering. That was honestly really great education. I learned so much there. Then I went back to uni, and with that experience back at uni, we were running somebody local guy called Andrew Delahanty for British Saloon Car Championship. So because I had a bit of experience through Steve, then I was mechanicking, etc., running the team, help running the team. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I remember one day we were racing in Silverstone. I was underneath the car changing anti-roller, and then I literally just looked, and then there was this Japanese kid on the moped, and then wearing races. So of course we said hello to each other. You don't see Japanese guys see each other back then. And then I didn't think anything of it. But when we going racing with this British Saloon Car racing for our race, we didn't have a quad bike. So I thought, he said he races in British Formula 3. He must have a quad bike. So I went to borrow his quad bike from his team, Diamond Racing, Huey. You must know Huey. Right? So
yes,
then, so I borrowed the quad bike. We did our race and then returned the quad bike. I said, okay, his race is soon. So I just go and watch it. Then back then in the national class, he was national class that year. Then there was a guy called what's it, Martin O'Connell, Irish guy.
Yeah.
He was very good back then. He was winning every national class races,
Okay.
but he had no money, so he had a white helmet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
So, but then I watched Takuma at Silverstone. He just beat him straight away. I thought, wow, you're quick. You beat Martin O'Connell. He's been beating everyone. Then Takuma said, really? Then he said, I got next race in Thruxton. Do you want to come and see? And then watched it in Thruxton. And then we talked. And then we discovered he's just exactly 1 year younger than me, like you said. And he said, next year I'm going to do a championship class. And I said, next year I'm going to start doing my PhD. I'm interested in this and this. Should we do something together?
It's amazing you ended up at F1 together.
But then honestly, next year in British Formula 3, I've done every single test and most of the races.
Yeah.
Again, doing lots of things. I was writing simulation, optimization stuff in my PhD, but I was testing it at the track side with Takuma, actually gathering real data, tire data from Avon, damper data from whoever the supplier that was, I can't remember. I worked with Darara engineers to get chassis data. So all the combination between the theoretical side, mathematical side, and then the practical side, and then working directly with driver like Takuma. And then first year his teammate was Ben Collins.
Ben Collins.
That was interesting. That was
Yeah.
cool. And then second year was amazing. I didn't do much second year because I really wanted to go back to focus on PhD, but it was Takuma and Anthony Davidson.
So great.
So again, that was great school,
Yes.
so lots of experience. And then when I was finishing PhD, either I was gonna go to Formula. I wanted to do Formula One, obviously, but if I couldn't get job in Formula, I wanted to do something that I can be a development driver as well as developing a car. So not in the racing, but in the passenger car side.
Yeah.
Now I actually had a job secured at the company called the TRW, not
Yeah.
Tom Wilkinson Racing, TRW.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then that was like, other than racing, that was my ideal job. But before I started there, the company changed ownership and they decided not to recruit anyone.
Right.
So I got made redundant even before I started working there. So
Right.
initially I thought, great, I get 3 months salary, I can continue finishing my PhD. But then it dawned on me 2 months in, right, I need to find a job.
Yeah.
Then I couldn't find a job. And then the offer I got in the end was the German Formula 3 Colin Colse's team as a race engineer. Then I thought, like, I remember coming back from Germany, meeting him, and he gave me a offer. Like, it's great, I got a job as a race engineer in German Formula 3. Back then it was competitive, but I didn't particularly want to do it. Then when I got back to UK, my phone rang, and that was Takuma. And Takuma said, how did your job interview go? I said, it's okay, he gave me a job, but I don't particularly want to go. Right, so if you're still open, then Tanaka-san at the HRD wants to speak to you. Are you sure? I said, yeah, go and see him. So I went to see Tanaka-san at the HRD, and then so Otmar was the vice president. Tanaka-san is the president of HRD. Otmar was vice president, and then they gave me a job in 23. So then Takuma was test driver. Then 24, I transferred to BAR Honda.
2004.
So,
yeah. One of the great human beings that you've worked with and for a long time and actually moved with them. You mentioned him already, Roman Grosjean. I mean, that relationship with Roman Grosjean that you've had and still have, fantastic and a key part really of your development in F1.
Yeah, absolutely. But honestly, like, I spoke with Roman about this a few years ago. I think I spoke with him in 2023, I think, or 22. I really wish when I was your race engineer, I had 5 more years of experience, because Roman went through a very, very difficult time, right? Especially with the crash in Spa. Mark Webber calling him the fast lap nutcase or something, right? So, and then it was clear from the very start that he was so talented. He had amazing speed, but he was very fragile. But also he was so perfectionist. From lap 1 of FP1 run 1, he had to show the world he's the best, right? Again, that's a completely wrong approach. But I did my best, but with the life experience I had, that was the best I could do back then. But I just felt like later on, like 10 years or 15 years later, with all the experience I had, at least if I had 5 more years of experience, I felt I could have helped him more, because I really feel like he had the potential to be at least a race winner, and then potential to be a world champion. But I just didn't feel I was the, experienced enough race engineer to achieve that with him. So I felt really bad. Then I said to Roman, I remember having a dinner in Brazil, mate, I loved my time with you, But I really wish I had extra experience like 5 years or that, because I could have done this different, this point, I didn't know what to do. But
Nicola,
I could have done.
I know. I mean, because I was commentating that 2020 season when he had that horrible shot. But I know for you, it really.
This is what I would love to chat to both of you about, being so involved on the day of the very
At the
famous
2020,
crash
yeah.
in 2020. And I know that, well, for you, you had such a really close bond
Yeah.
with Roman by that point. You were working together so closely,
Yeah.
and that crash, as a viewer, I was crying watching it, because I just found everything so overwhelming. So as a commentator and as someone who was so close and working with Roman Grosjean on that day, talk me through how it felt for you.
I couldn't even cry. Initially I was on the pit wall. I saw the fire goes up. I didn't know immediately it was Roman. Then
Yeah.
I'm sure everything felt like eternity, but I'm sure it was really quick. But then once I realized Roman, that was Roman,
Yeah.
like immediately you think he's dead, right? I
Yeah.
didn't see him come out. Then his race engineer, Gary Gannon, told me, no, he's out, he's out. I was like shouting at him, are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want false hope, right? But then I saw him walking out. So I was like, wow, at least he's alive. But then Kevin Magnussen was his teammate. Me and Kev were exactly the same. Like, I had to go to see him in a medical room before he's transported off to the hospital by helicopter to actually believe that he's alive, because
Yeah.
I just could not believe it. And also I wanted, Marion, his wife, I know her very well as well. So we are family friends, right? So I didn't want to tell her unless I see him in
Yeah.
my eyes that he's okay.
Yeah.
And then I remember just going to the medical office just before he was transported to the helicopter. He saw me and he gave me thumbs up. So I said, okay. And then I messaged Marion, like, I saw him.
Yeah.
He gave me thumbs up. He's all right, So, yeah, then, Kev was the same. Even though I told this to Kev said, I can't be, all right, let's go. I want to see him after the race.
Yeah.
Let's go and see him. And then me and Kev went to see Roman in the hospital, and then, he was in a great spirit. And then, yeah. And then Roman and Kevin, they didn't have the best of the relationship, right, as a teammates. But after that, from that point, they are really good together.
Yeah.
But then we all said together, it's a bit sad that it takes this kind of incident for you guys to get along. That's why.
To open your eyes.
Yeah.
To seeing that you're both just humans.
Yeah. But yeah.
What was it like for you?
Of course, it was very moving to see that accident happen. It was like, whoa. But having been a commentator for many years on different forms of racing, I had seen a lot of big accidents. And of course, nowadays, thankfully, Formula One is so much safer than it used to be. There used to be far more big accidents and injured drivers, or even drivers being killed. It was so great to see him get out of that car so quickly. That was remarkable.
I mean, you're still really close with him, aren't you?
Yeah. But you said there's been so many horrible accidents, but you never seen engine, gearbox, and chassis split in that way these days.
No.
And actually things going up in the frame.
That's true.
In the old days, used to go up in the frame all the time.
And seeing a driver jump out of the flames like that just completely took.
I was doing a chat with Martin Donnelly not long ago, and Martin had a horrible accident in the Lotus when he was in Spain, which ended his Formula One career. And that was back in the 90s, and the way the car broke away in those days, that there was nothing he could do, and it took him out of Formula One. He went on to racing in other ways, but to see the ability of Roman to get out of that car, it was such a relief, really.
But you talk about the ability to get out of the car. Yes, things like safety improvement and Halo, obviously that saved him, no doubt, right?
Yes, because initially I didn't like those, but then I thought, you've got to have that.
But again, so that safety improvements led by FIA and the teams, that's brilliant. That saved him for sure. But then what was so moving for me afterwards, that I went to see the onboard footage, because of course onboard footage for public cuts out, right?
Yeah.
But then just to look at the what we can do better to improve the safety. So I was allowed access to look at the onboard footage right until the very end, until the Roman got out. Then I wasn't expecting this, but when I watched the onboard footage, every single movement he did and decision making he did in the cockpit was correct. And then if he took one wrong turn,
Really?
he would have been dead. He would have
Really?
been too late. Because I can't remember the second, but you know all the Nomex and everything, how many seconds that's been
Yes.
homologated.
Yeah.
He literally got out within a second of that limit.
Yeah.
So only one he had was his hand, where he had to really put his hand in the frame to push himself up, right? So that's the only ban he had. All his body, everything else is fine. But if he made wrong decision in one of these, I can't remember, 10 decision making point, he would have been dead. And one of the point I remember is he trying to get out, and he realized his left foot was stuck.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But it's frame everywhere, right? And he's sort of like half out. He had to sit back in so that he can put up full power to yank his leg out, right? So he managed to pull his leg out. Then shoes came off. You know how tight those shoes were, right?
Yeah.
But that's how much power he had to
That's
pull his
amazing.
leg. But to do that, he had to go back into the frame again,
Ooh.
then push himself against it to do that. And he did it, and then he couldn't find a place to put his hand, other than this place in a frame. But he just did it because that's the only way
'Cause
he
you have
could.
to. Yeah,
Then he
there's
got
no
out.
other choice.
But then he just, when I was watching that video, I knew he never gave up at any point, not just for himself, but his family,
Yeah.
his wife and his kids. And then the reason he walked out of the car, not by the stretcher, was he needed to show his family back at home that
Yeah.
he's walking, he's alive. So, but you can see in that footage, he never gave up for his family. That was so moving. And then I said this to Marion, and then Marion said, I want to see. I said, Marion, are you sure? And then Marion said, yeah, I'm sure I want to see it. Then Marion saw it, and then she said that helped her as well. I can believe it, because that's your husband not giving up anything
Yeah.
for you and your kids,
Wow.
right? That was incredible.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Astonishing.
Yeah.
Ask a question because I can't talk.
Well, no. I mean, that's your career in Formula One has been remarkable. But let's just come back into the current world
Yeah.
of Formula One. We're in this 2026 season. It's been a slightly odd early part of the year because we've lost some Grand Prix,
Yeah,
obviously, with what's
Yeah.
going on in the Middle East.
Yeah.
But you're all working so hard to make this work now, and you're doing a great job so far with Haas. Although the last race, I know, didn't get points. You had
Yeah.
got points in the races leading up to Miami. Miami didn't quite manage to get points. So the next race we've got is Montreal in Canada, and then Monaco. We've got all the M's: Miami, Montreal, Monaco, all coming up. How do you feel about going into Montreal, first of all, and then to Monaco? How do you feel it's going to be? I mean, Esteban Ocon's actually done a good job at both of those events for the Haas team. He's got some of the best results ever for Haas at those,
Yeah,
those
but
tracks.
honestly, to be honest, these are more about a development race than individual trucks.
Okay.
So before going on to Miami, I knew we were going to be up against it, because I just knew everyone's going to be bringing upgrades, right? Only people who didn't bring upgrades is, if I remember correctly, Mercedes, Aston, and us,
Yeah.
right? Then largely or slightly smaller. Yeah, obviously degree of differences, but everyone else brought a upgrade package, all our direct competitors. So I knew before going to Miami we were going to be up against it.
Okay.
But it's just, again, that's part of the constraints being such a small team.
Yes.
Our development rate, the speed, etc., is not quite there. And then that's the biggest challenge we have going on from Miami. So Canada, we will have upgrade package,
Good.
but whether it's good enough or not,
You don't know.
we need to see.
Yeah.
But I'm sure other people are bringing more upgrades after Miami, because the thing is, like, you know, we had to cancel 2 races in Bahrain and Saudi for the wrong reasons, but it's a right decision, of course.
Yes, yes.
But kind of I feel like blessing in disguise, because some people said to me like, oh, you know, you must be so disappointed that you got great momentum first 3 races. You'd rather have Bahrain and Saudi. Yes and no, because Bahrain pre-season testing we've done well. Our
did.
rear end of the car is very good, so I thought we were going to be strong in Bahrain. But I knew we weren't bringing any upgrades to Bahrain. You know, we couldn't even bring it to Miami, right? So I'm sure bigger teams would have brought upgrade to Bahrain. That became Miami. Then that means they're gonna have an even bigger one for Montreal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is all the challenge we are facing as a team, but we're not complaining about it. It's part of the game. But again, like beginning of this year, we are up against it. Then our guys managed to produce such a competitive baseline. So Miami, honestly, I took a lot more positives, because without upgrade, we're still fighting on the
Yes.
cusp of points,
Yes.
right? And then, so I think without poor pit stop, which we know the reason why, we could have scored points. and even the sprint qualifying, I think Ollie could have made it to SQ3. So with race 1 car, we're still there.
Yeah.
So if we can understand the upgrade, that's a big if, by the way. If we can understand the upgrade, if we can make it work in the sprint weekend of Montreal, I'm sure we can make a step up. But so there's still lots of positives. That was my message to the guys after Miami. Everyone's disappointed, of course, not scoring points. But look, that's not their fault. We couldn't put upgrade on the car. It's such a resource limitation that I'm trying to solve to give them better environment.
I can understand that.
I'm kind of fascinated that after Canada, obviously, we're then off to Monaco. And Monaco, as a viewer, has always been quite a weird one to watch because we know it's so tight. We know it's street racing. We know they're not going full whack. If it's raining, it's chaos. We actually brought some positive vibes with our Monaco P1 trophy. So we're bringing you good vibes for Monaco. But do you feel like with these new regulations, it would suit the Monaco circuit? Do you feel like we're going to see a change in Monaco, or it's just going to be the same old
Can you overtake
70 lap formation lap that we normally get to see every
I
year?
don't think you can overtake on Sunday now.
It's so difficult.
I mean, look at Suzuka.
Yeah.
You know, even Miami was quite difficult to overtake.
was, yeah.
You know? So Monaco, I think, it'll be the same. But I think,
Although
you know,
we saw a bit more overtaking Suzuka than we have done in the past.
yeah,
so-
slightly better, but that's not. I don't think it's enough now
No.
to see overtaking Monaco. But look, you know, okay, not 24, 22, but we have 22 events in the calendar. Now, I think Monaco is very, very unique. I think it's, rather than trying to make Monaco Sunday work, I don't know, this is my personal opinion, right? I think we should just accept Monaco Sunday is that, but Monaco is a amazing location, totally different vibe, and then qualifying is everything.
Exactly.
That-
That's
that
Saturday.
It's
isn't
all
it?
about Saturday.
Saturday, it's
Yeah.
all about Saturday.
Yeah.
That within itself is a very unique event. And also, Monaco traditionally is just one stop, right?
Yeah.
Other than if you're trying to force it to two stop. But
Yeah, that
then
was
again,
last season, wasn't it? Yeah.
because it's just one stop on Sunday, the only thing that can happen is that around that one stop.
Yep.
So that's actually a pressure as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you make one small mistake around that, that's it, you're done. You can never recover.
Well, the fact that Esteban was 7th last year in Monaco for Haas, and that's the best. I think that's the best result Haas have had in Monaco.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
So that was last year.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens this
Who
year.
knows?
Yes.
Who
Who
knows?
knows?
It's
Who
so
knows?
unpredictable.
Right.
I wouldn't be complaining if that happens.
Before we
great.
wrap up,
Yeah.
from my seat, and for anyone who's watching this or listening to this, it's very obvious that you two have known each other for a long time.
Yes.
When did you first meet, and how did this friendship happen?
When I was commentating on Formula One, and then when you were with Haas, straight away you had this sort of role, engineering role. And I've always wanted to talk to engineers because when I grew up involved in racing, I grew up as a helper for a Formula Ford team and just helping them out, a bit like you started out, just polishing things and helping them.
Yeah.
But working with a guy called Rob Creswell, who was a really good engineer on a Formula Ford car. And I learned so much from him. He taught me all sorts of things. It's a bit like how you've learned. And so I always wanted to talk to engineers, and you were one of the F1 engineers that I could talk to and understand things a bit more, and it helped me with commentary so much.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
good.
So
nice.
that's really what worked. Yeah.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't. But honestly, like I can't remember exactly when we first met. Is it Haas days?
I think it was probably Haas days
Yeah.
that we really started talking.
Yeah, so I don't even remember that. But then what I remember is every time I had a conversation with Ben, it was interesting and genuine.
Yeah.
So
And when he became a team boss, I thought, oh, he's going to be so busy now. But I thought, well, just get in touch. And he said, come say hello. Come on, let's have a chat.
no, because again, like one of the in the Formula One paddock, you know, there's all sorts of people, right?
Yeah.
But Ben's
Yeah.
one of the genuine guy who's really interested in for everything for right reasons.
Yeah.
So I think we got the hearts in similar places. So I always enjoy talking with Ben. So yeah.
Oh, that's been nice. It's
Oh,
been
it's been
really
great to
nice.
see you.
Yeah.
Really good.
But thank you so much for joining us
No,
on this
thank
podcast.
you for having me.
It's been this is the first time, because normally we do race reaction and we
Right.
bring in some guests to come and chat about it. So this is actually our first time having a team principal in.
Oh really?
So it's fantastic that it's you, because you've set the bar big time
Really?
for future guests. It's been an absolute joy. So we wish you all the best for the rest of the season. Enjoy. We're going to do some climbing and stuff in the meantime before you.
I don't think I can do much. I've just done some in
Okay.
Canada.
You've done some amazing climbing in Canada. You were showing me some pictures earlier.
No, because we went for I went for a conference for our partners in Canada after Miami. That was in place called Banff, the amazing national park.
Yeah.
And I managed to do not rock climbing, but mountaineering, but with a bit of a scrambling and the winter mountains with snow. It's brilliant.
That's crazy.
No, that's fun.
Well, it's been absolutely fantastic having you with us. Thank you so much. And of course, for the podcast, we'll be back next week to talk about everything involving you, but also all of the other teams, whatever happens in Canada. So we're looking forward to having everybody back.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.